American and allied troops holding young kids outside Kabul airport yesterday after yet another stampede. As many people, Afghans, people of other countries, Americans, are desperate to escape through that airport. They're trying to rush their way in. It is so desperate there that the situation is just awful. The British military is saying at least 7 people were killed. And those are just some of the horrifying scenes happening there just about every day for the past 10 days or so. Our next guest and his wife were fortunate enough to make it out. Singer and songwriter Aryana Sayeed is Afghanistan's biggest pop star. She and her husband were on a commercial flight out of Kabul more than a week ago when they heard gunshots at the airport. She and her husband and manager Hasib Sayed were eventually evacuated to safety, and we're joined now by Haseeb. He is the founder of Shirzad Entertainment. And sir, thank you so much for taking the time. I can only imagine what you guys have been through.
Thank you for having me. And quite honestly, this was probably one of the toughest experiences of our lives, even though we have dealt with quite a few challenging situations in the past. But literally nothing compares to what we experienced, and not just for us, but for the whole population there. At this very moment in Afghanistan, it's chaos.
Right.
The way people are actually reacting to Taliban taking over Kabul especially, it's scary. It's quite scary, to be honest.
It is scary. Where exactly are you now? Where did you get taken to?
Currently, we're in Los Angeles. We actually got taken to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So upon arrival in Doha, we did not have the permission to get out of the army base, even though I do have a Canadian passport and my other half has a British passport. But according to some immigration laws, we're not allowed to get out in Doha. And then we went to Kuwait, eventually flew over to Washington, D.C.
Right. I'm sure you're very happy to be back in the States. Pick up the story from where you heard the gunshots at the airport. Tell us about those final moments in the country at the airport, the situation, and how good it felt to get out.
Well, to be quite honest, those were not the final moments in the country, because what happened, initially we went for a commercial flight on August 15th. And initially people were checking in, things were normal. There were staff at the counter, and there were immigration officers, security officers. But when we heard the gunshots, literally the whole airport, all formal staff, they evacuated the airport without even waiting a moment.
Wow.
So security was gone, customs were gone, police was gone. And all of a sudden, what happened was the pads, for example, the VIP pad that only executives and government ministers and even the president take to get on the plane, there was nobody even stopping people in that area. So people could just walk into any plane they wanted to.
Unbelievable. Now, we said before, your wife is the biggest star in Afghanistan, biggest pop star in Afghanistan. We've got the video up here. She's a philanthropist, was a host of a show it's like The Voice in Afghanistan, I guess. What do you imagine would have happened if you two got caught by the Taliban? I cannot even fathom what that would have meant.
You know what? For many years now, we have openly spoken against the suppression of Taliban against women, because even if some areas they were in control of, they literally did not allow women to go out by themselves. They did not allow women to study. They did not allow women to actually work. So we have openly spoken about that, especially Aryana. For so many years, she has spoken against that. And I mean, if you think about it, people who have not even stood up against them, they have punished them, they have dealt with them so negatively.
Sure.
Now, somebody who has actually openly advocated against their practices, who have advocated in support of women's rights, who has advocated in support of human rights, and that too, being a female, a woman, and that too, she is a singer. Honestly, all I will say is that the night before we eventually managed to leave, because we actually got so compressed within Kabul that we thought we will not be able to leave. Aryana and I, we actually made a deal. It was her request. She said, please do not let me be caught alive. I usually carry a gun over there, a legal one. And she made me promise to her that if we were not be able to make it, I shoot her, and then I shoot myself.
That's unbelievable. That's the reality of
Unfortunately,
this situation.
that's the reality of life. See, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Rob. You have to remember one thing. You may have read in the news a few years ago, there was this young lady called Farkhunda. If you may remember, they actually burned a poor young lady alive, literally on the streets of Kabul. This is not Taliban. This is actually on the streets of Kabul at a time when she was accused of speaking against Islam or against Quran. And these are not even extreme-minded people. So if you have got such people, the mullah especially, if you have got them treating women like that, what do you think of Taliban? And you know what? I don't want to get too much on the political side, but I want to mention one word, and we want to mention this again and again and again and again. Pakistan.
Pakistan. The problem is
Pakistan. Like, for God's sake, I don't know what exactly do we have to do to make the world understand that Taliban do not have the abilities to actually take over provinces, to take over like cities, to take over the country like that. These are uneducated people. These are ignorant. These are vicious animals. Like, you just look at them. They don't even look decent.
Right.
But they actually are trained. I don't know if it's exactly. They're being used.
Funded and Pakistan is the real problem. They harbored them for all those years while we were inside the country. You're right about that.
I have to ask you a question as a U.S. resident.
Yeah.
Why is United States of America funding Pakistan? Please tell me.
Horrible foreign policy. And I think of a general fear of a nation that is nuclear armed and wanting to appease them, a large nation that has nuclear arms. Hasib Sayed, you put it so well, and you're right. You're exactly right about that as being one of the fundamental problems of this whole situation. What are we going to do about Pakistan? Those are questions that our government needs to answer. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it. What a story you told us. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. And I just request Mr. Joe Biden especially and the whole cabinet, please do not forget about Afghanistan. If you leave Afghanistan alone again, remember what happened last time.
Right.
If you don't want a repeat of 9/11 in U.S. or in some other NATO countries, please do not let Afghanistan become the hub of terrorism yet again. Otherwise, you will have nobody to blame but yourself.
Haseeb, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. God bless.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.